If you're here for a boring, realistic telling of history, you've come to the wrong place. Sorry. If you want an edgy and mid-2000s retelling, you've come to the right place. This is 2006's Marie Antoinette. Spoiler alert, while I might be giving you my opinion on the film, that's no substitute for watching it for yourself. Links to the film are in the description. As Marie wakes up for the day, she gets dressed and is escorted to her parents' hall. Marie is set to become the Queen of France, and she heads out well accompanied by her ambassador. On her journey, she looks at a picture of her groom-to-be, and she finds ways to entertain herself on her long journey from Austria. Okay, I know I told you that this isn't going to be a boring telling of history, but you've got to get through this little journey real quick. It picks up here in a minute. Soon, they arrive at the location where the ambassador will hand off Marie to the French court. She's introduced to Comtesse Noël. The Comtesse curtsies as is tradition, but Marie embraces her with a big smile on her face. She explains that now she's leaving Austria behind, she'll enter onto French soil as the Dauphine of France. They even take her dog. They remove all of her clothes and personal belongings so they can dress her in French clothes only. Now that Marie has said goodbye to all of her homeland belongings, she hops in another carriage and takes the journey to the French countryside. More of the court gathers here, and Marie is welcomed by the King of France. The king, in turn, introduces Marie to his grandson, Louis, and she finally gets to see her fiancé in person. This is painful to watch. Are marriages like this still a thing anywhere? I mean, they could have done way worse. I was almost worried that the king was actually her fiancé, like she'd been catfished centuries before social media was a thing. Now that would be setting records. Marie now hops into yet another carriage and heads for the palace. Once there, Marie is welcomed by a plethora of royals that are awaiting her arrival. She accepts flowers from the children and feels the stares of everyone as she walks inside. Once there, the women in her entourage are just as judgy as the ones outside. But the decor of the palace is to die for. Not even exaggerating. They spend a good amount of time looking at all of the decor and accessories inside the palace. Another cool fact here is that the country of France actually granted the crew permission to film quite a bit in the Palace of Versailles. Even through renovations, a lot of the palace shots are actually inside the palace itself. After getting settled in, Marie makes her way to the church where her husband-to-be is waiting for her, along with half of royal France. This scene is actually quite haunting to watch on some level. You can literally hear the uniforms creaking as Louis puts the ring on Marie's finger. I think you can hear someone breathing in the back of the church too. At the reception, things don't seem to loosen up at all. And the king makes things even more blatantly awkward by toasting to them producing an heir to the throne. Oh, this is the best part. After the reception, the newlywed couple get ready to go to bed, and they're essentially tucked in by about 30 royals and the bishop. The king even wishes them good luck before the curtains are drawn, not to put any pressure on anyone. By morning, the king finds out that absolutely nothing happened, and the dressing court wakes up Marie. Marie gets a quick introduction to procedure in France, and she learns by having to stand naked in front of everyone as the person with the highest rank gets the privilege of dressing her. Then it's time for breakfast, and even more procedures to be followed. And Marie realizes that things are much different for a royal in France compared to Austria. She tries to make conversation with Louis to try and find out more about him, but he doesn't give her a single bit of wiggle room. That night, Marie attends dinner, and she finds out that the king has a mistress that he brings to court so she can pleasure him. No one seems to be keen on her being there, but Marie's interested in the fact that she doesn't hold to their same social standards. She burps at the table and everyone looks like they're about to throw up as a result. Yeah, they wouldn't want me at that table, that's for sure. Rumors continue to fly as Marie's still looked at as an outsider. And that night, Louis even tells her that he's too tired to do anything. The next day, Marie even gets a letter from her mother that tells her to get Louis to consummate the marriage. The news of their lack of sex has officially crossed country lines. After being reminded that the treaty that's been put into effect thanks to their marriage might be at stake, she tries to lay on a little extra charm that night, but it still has no effect on Louis. By the next day, Marie's had enough of being brushed off and treated like a foreigner. Marie spots the mistress of the king, and she seems to get an idea. I'm sorry, but you really start to wonder how someone can sleep in the same bed as Marie and not do so much as to touch her. I don't know too much about the actual history, but they make him seem like a complete loner. It's not even that he doesn't like women, he almost seems like he has no idea how to talk to anyone. Word gets around that Marie's been snobbing the king's mistress, and this brings worry to her mother and the ambassador. Marie doesn't see why she should associate herself with a harlot, but she eventually gives in and plays along just enough to make the king happy. That night, while the king and his mistress play pin the tail feather, Marie listens to Louis talk about the first mechanical locks, completely clothed. As time goes on, Marie gets used to the politics of royalty. When Louis leaves to go on a hunting trip, Marie's very open about how humiliated she would be if her sister-in-law would become pregnant before her. And Louis promises that they'll finally try for an heir after he returns. Later at the opera, Marie changes tradition by clapping at a court performance which is usually frowned upon. After seeing the reception of the crowd, Louis seems to start to see her in a new light. While he's out on another hunting venture, Marie gets a letter from her mother that puts even more strain on her need to produce an heir. That night, Louis actually kisses her and tries to do what he thinks will work. Maybe that's all it is. It might just be a lack of experience and anxiety. I mean, he grabs her hair like he's holding a rag doll, and when he mounts her, that's right, mount is about as close a word as I can pick to describe this. When he mounts her, he seems like he's trying to get it up. Soon, Louis and Marie are called into the delivery of Louis's nephew, and Marie can hear everyone criticizing her for not producing an heir as she walks back to her room to cry. Afterwards, Marie seems to go on a shopping spree, and she's eventually talked into going to a masked ball that they would normally not be allowed to enter. Since it's a masked ball, they assume that they'll be able to slip in without anyone recognizing or knowing. While they mingle, Louis ends up meeting someone that shows interest in knowing whether Marie's been deflowered. Louis ends up leaving him there after hearing that he'd like to do the deeds if Louis hasn't been able to yet. Meanwhile, Marie catches the eye of another man, Count Fersen of the Swedish army. Marie plays hard to get, and she ends up meeting back up with Louis in time to head back to the palace. I feel like Louis might be a little more inclined to get busy when they get home now after hearing that other guy. When they return to the palace, they find out that the king is taken ill with smallpox, and he can't make his final confession while having a mistress. After sending the mistress away, the king dies, and Louis is crowned the next king of France. Now that Marie's queen, she enjoys all of the spoils that come with it. A spectacle is thrown for Marie's 18th birthday. Yeah, that's right, 18! Marie's only 18! Towards the end of the party, Louis heads to bed, and he leaves Marie to finish her birthday with a few friends as they wait to watch the sunrise in a few hours. After watching the most beautiful sunrise, Louis heads out for a hunt, and Marie heads back inside. Later, Marie finds out that she's run out of money for the month, and Louis sends funds and troops to America as they start their revolution. Soon, Marie's brother shows up, and he tries to talk to Marie about her constant gambling and partying. He even has a nice little sex talk with Louis and finds out that everything works, just not at the right time. So of course, he writes back to their mother to assure her that things should be back on track now. That night, Louis actually does the deed, and Marie looks like a new woman the next morning. Then we cut ahead to Marie giving birth, and we find out that it's a girl. Later, Louis actually treats Marie to a new retreat, and she spends a considerable amount of time relaxing there. Suddenly, time jumps again, and I'm starting to wonder how much time we've actually gone through in this movie. At first, I didn't realize that she was only 17 this whole time, and now she's got a daughter who looks to be about 3. When did all this happen? Eventually, Marie hears about how her new evasion of protocol has upset some of the royals back at the palace, but she decides to stick with her own plans. When the soldiers that fought in America come back, Louis throws a ball in their honor, and Marie comes back to the palace to welcome them home. While having introductions, Marie runs into Count Fersen again. After a festive evening, people start to take notice of how Marie likes to be entertained by Count Fersen, and this quickly turns into the two of them having an affair at Marie's retreat. This is the story that I remember learning about. Of course, history focuses on the infidelity, but I can't say that this is some of the most entertaining parts of the story. Remember the carriage rides in the beginning? Which part do you think is most entertaining? If it's the carriage rides, you're a special kind of person on a whole new level. After Count Fersen leaves, Marie's life seems to go back to the same dull routine as she walks the steps of the palace. While Marie walks around the members of the royal court gossiping, she has a daydream of Count Fersen atop his horse during battle, and she asks to be excused. After she leaves, she heads back to her room where she lies in bed and continues to think about Fersen. Later, Louis starts to make life hard for the French people by continuing to aid the Americans, even though France is in a grave debt. With the people suffering from hunger, they turn to making fun of Marie and her entourage as a way out. Marie tries to speak with the ambassador to figure out a way to help the people, but she hears about the death of her mother. It's crazy how things can take such a sharp downhill turn in a matter of seconds. I feel like there was such a lull in time there where it was just parties and relaxing, then all of the bad happened in the same little bit of time. It's just, why can't the bad things be spread out more? Marie writes back to her brother to make sure that he knows that France is still an ally and she's still his sister. Then we jump ahead to Marie popping out a male heir, and time jumps ahead even more. Soon, Marie's spending is labeled as the reason that France is in debt, and the people are not too happy with their standards of living during this tough time. Marie tries to make some changes that will keep the palace spending down, but she still enjoys the luxuries of being the Queen of France. Eventually, France starts to put all of its traditions back into play as they try to make Marie feel like an outcast in the country she rules. As time continues moving on, we see that Marie has yet another baby, but it dies as an infant. Marie sulks around the palace as she mourns the passing of her baby, and she takes solace in holding the children she has left. Life goes on, but they're interrupted yet again when they find out that the Bastille has been stormed by an angry mob. The court recommends that all royals associated with the family should be sent off to safety elsewhere, but Marie tells them that she'll stay with Louis at the palace. After Marie says goodbye to all of her friends, she's left in an empty palace as they ride off to safety in other countries and fortresses. Soon, Louis is warned of an angry mob that's on its way to the palace. Sure enough, they arrive that night, and a guard comes in to warn the group that they're coming in to kill Marie. They quickly get the children and gather together in another room as they wait for the mob to come inside. Now what's crazy is how polite this mob is. When Marie opens the balcony door to look out at them, it literally looks like there are no guards keeping them from going inside. What's stopping them? Manners? Protocol? Well, eventually, Louis and Marie head to their dinner table where they wait for the mob to come in. Then we cut ahead to Marie and the children being escorted to a carriage in the morning. She looks out over the grounds one last time, and she smiles at Louis as she comes to terms that she'll never see this sight again. Then, the credits roll. This is one that came out at a time that I couldn't really appreciate it for what it was, but now that I've rewatched it, I definitely enjoyed it immensely. While it had plenty of popular items to focus on, it decided to make a notable figure more human in the way we view her. Check it out. Thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoyed the video. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more like this one. Comment what you think I should watch next, and I'll see you in the next video.